Hello, my name is Safwan Brai. Welcome to my website. On my ISP website, the book I did was The Youth of God by Hassan Gedi Santur. Before we get into a summary of the book, I'd like to give you a detail and basically a backstory about Hassan Gedi. Hassan Gedi is a Somali immigrant that came to Canada at age 13, right before the civil war started in Somalia. He has an MFA from York University, a BA from English, and he has published two other books named Something Remains and The Maps of Exile, both of which can be found here. I've embedded links to the Goodreads for both of the books so you can see reviews and things like that. He's also worked as a radio journalist for CBC and has done work with the New York Times as well. When we go into the summary of the book, we see that the summary says the Youth of God tells the story of Noor, a 17-year-old second-generation Somali immigrant growing up in a broken household in the neighborhood of Dixon, Toronto, a neighborhood that is surrounded by crime and poverty. From the absence of his father to the departure of his brother, Noor faces many hardships. On top of all the family issues, Noor has to deal with being bullied and harassed at school. However, Noor finds two shining lights in his life: his biology teacher, Mr. Ilmi, and his imam from the local mosque, Imam Yusuf. Noor is now faced with two choices: his faith or his school. Which one will he choose and which one will he abandon forever? When we analyze the story under a Freudian lens, we can see that the youth of God is a warning to parents. Hassan Gedi demonstrates that the lack of parental guidance in the formation of a child's superego causes them to commit violent acts, join extremist groups, and abandon long relationships. This can be seen in our character Noor. As a result of the lack of a father figure in Noor's life, his superego was molded by his imam. This led him to become more susceptible to radicalization, which caused him to commit a violent act at school, leave Canada and go to Somalia to join the Youth of God, and abandon the relationships he had with his mother, brother, and teacher. When we analyze Noor's character, we can see that at the beginning of the story, he starts off as shy, awkward, and unconfrontational. But the more time he spends with his imam, the more we see his character change to the opposite. He speaks what's truly on his mind. He retaliates against his bullies much more violently and doesn't care about being socially awkward. Under a Freudian lens, we can see that Noor has always had these desires. We know that he's always wanted to talk back. He's always wanted to say the things he's wanted to say, and he's always wanted to do the things he's wanted to do. But his super ego would not allow him to do that. But the moment he starts looking up to his imam, the imam's super ego and essentially becomes his, and then his id desires can be filtered and actually he can do the things that he wants to do. This is why Noor enjoys staying with his imam so much, and this is why the imam was so easily able to radicalize him. When we look at Somali culture and the Youth of God, we see that Somali culture is heavily based around like religion, and religion is a very important part of Somali culture. We can see that many character dynamics and arcs are formed on the basis of whether they're religious or not. For example, the dynamic between Noor and his father is basically found on the basis that Noor's father despises religious people, while Noor despises his father for leaving. So this causes tension between the two characters, which like eventually boils over in the story. Another another like character dynamic that is driven by religion can be between Mr. Ilmi and the Imam. When the two meet, the Imam is essentially he looks down on Mr. Ilmi and he lies to him and he doesn't treat him respectfully because he knows that Mr. Ilmi is not a religious person. In the same way that religion is a key element of the complexion of the story, religion is also a key element of Somali culture as well. We can see the influence of Islam and Somali culture in the way they dress. When you compare the two, to compare the way these two different countries, Somalia and Saudi Arabia, how the people dress, you see that they're very similar. This is because both countries are founded upon the rules of Islam, things like that. Um, in our story, our character Noor ends up being radicalized. Violent radicalization is essentially a process in which a person will adopt an extremist belief and will most likely encourage or facilitate violence with the aim of promoting an ideology, political project, or cause a means of social transformation. This is basically what Noor is inferenced to be doing. He is going back to Somalia and joining a terrorist group, so we'll infer that he's doing this. Here is just an embedded video on how ISIS recruits people and things like that. The next just goes into immigration and just talks about how characters are descendants of immigrants, some facts, statistics, and a video on the Somali Civil War and how that started. And then to the end, we have our works cited, just where I got my information from and things like that. That was my website. Thank you very much for